Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Aleph. We will be learning today in Yirtzeh Hashem Daf Samach Vav Amid Beis. We're continuing to learn Hilchos Tefillin. We pick up today on Samach Vav Amid Aleph. We are in Siman Lamed Ches, and we pick up 2 lines off the bottom in the Shulchan Aruch with Sif Ches. Now, today's shir is one of those shiurim where we are discussing a very, very, very complex topic that can't really give justice to in the scope of this shir, but we'll learn the Mechaber, the Ramah, and we'll learn everything according to the Mishnah Berurah, and we'll give enough background that you need to understand it. But it's a very, very complex sugya, and that is the sugya of Osek b'mitzvah Pטור מן המצווה. So before we even go into the Shulchan Aruch, I'm going to start with a Gemara in Sukkah on Chavav Amud Aleph. Chavav Amud Aleph in Sukkah, we have a brisa, 2 lines off the top. The brisa says, Tanya, we learned in the brisa. Amar Reb Chananya ben Akavya. Reb Chananya ben Akavya said, Koisvei Svarim Tfilin Umezuzos. Those who are writing Svarim, meaning Sifrei Torah, Tfilin, a sefer is writing Tfilin, Umezuzos, or a sefer is writing Mezuzos, Hein, the seferim themselves, V'tagarehen, and the merchants that they sell the stam to, who are then going to sell them to others, V'tagare tagarehen, and the vendors who buy the stam from the wholesalers, V'chol ha'oiskin b'melecha shamayim, and anybody else who is engaged in melecha shamayim, la'asuye, this comes to include moichrei tcheles, those who sell tcheles dye for use in tzitzits, peturin mi kriya shema, these individuals are patur from a chiyuv to say kriya shema, umin ha-tefillah, they're patur from tefillah, umin ha-tefillin, and they're patur from putting on tefillin, umikol mitzvahs ha'amurais b'Torah, and they're patur from all other mitzvahs of the Torah. Lekayim divrei Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, this is in concert with the words of Rabbi Yossi HaGlili. Shahaya Rabbi Yossi HaGlili Omer, Rabbi Yossi HaGlili said, ha'osek b'mitzvah, somebody who's engaged in one mitzvah, pטור min ha-mitzvah, is exempt from another mitzvah that comes his way. So we have this pטור of Osek b'mitzvah Pטור מן ha-mitzvah. If you're busy being mekayim a mitzvah daraisa, so interestingly enough, the example in the brisa here in Sukkah is a sefer who's writing tefillin. A sefer who's writing tefillin is one of the taryag mitzvahs to write tefillin. There's a mitzvah to wear tefillin, but in order for people to wear tefillin, there have to be seferim who write tefillin. So a sefer who's writing a sefer Torah, a sefer who's writing tefillin, a sefer is writing mezuzah, he is engaged in what the brisa over here calls melecha shamayim. He's engaged in a mitzvah. When somebody is engaged in a mitzvah, he's not mechuyev to go ahead and try and stop doing what he's doing to do another mitzvah. Not only is he not mechuyev to stop what he's doing, but there's a ran, and it comes out from the Chavetz Chaim here, the Biur Halacha, from the words of the Ramah. We seem to be going according to the shita of the ran. The ran goes to great length to discuss this, and the ran says you have to understand what Osek b'mitzvah Pטור מן ha-mitzvah means. And he brings down a Gemara that speaks about workers who are digging kuchen lemeis. Once upon a time, in the times of the Mishnah, the times of the Gemara, very often they would bury people in kuchen. What were kuchen? Kuchen were caves. We know that we're makbid, that the mace has to be below ground. Doesn't necessarily mean that the mace has to be in the ground. They used to make kuchen. They would dig caves down that were underground, and in those caves, they would make niches in the walls, big enough to slide in an aron with a mace. So the mace is in an aron, and the mace is in that niche that's below ground, and that's a valid burial. And then they would seal it up. So the Gemara says that if workers are digging kuchen lemace, they're potter from Kriya Shema, they're potter from Tefillah, they're potter from Tefillin. Now, like the Ran says, wait a second. When workers are digging kuchen, they don't work without a stop. They dig for a while, then they get tired, then they have to go sit and they have to rest for a few minutes. And then after they rest, they go ahead, they pick the shovel back up, and they start digging again. So what is this Isaac b'mitzvah potter min mitzvah? Dig the kuchen, and then when you take a 5-minute break, go say Kriya Shema. You take another 5-minute break, put on tefillin. You take another 5-minute break, daven Shmoneh Esrei. What are we coming on to Isaac b'mitzvah potter min mitzvah? But the Ran explains that no. Isaac b'mitzvah potter min mitzvah does not just mean that if you're Isaac in one mitzvah, and in order to go do the other mitzvah, you're going to have to be mevatel from doing the first mitzvah. So in that case, the Torah says you don't have to. Isaac b'mitzvah, you're in the middle of doing one mitzvah. We're not going to require you to stop doing that mitzvah to start doing another mitzvah. No, the Ran says Isaac b'mitzvah potter min mitzvah means even more than that. When workers are digging kuchen, the way you dig kuchen is you work for a half hour and then you break for 5 minutes to recover your strength. If we're going to say that during the 5-minute break, you should go say Kriya Shema, during the 5-minute break, you should go put on tefillin, that is cramping the style of the kuchen diggers. Now they're not going to be able to recover their strength the same way. If somebody is digging kuchen lemace, we allow him to be mekayim that mitzvah in the normal way of being mekayim that mitzvah. The normal way of being mekayim that mitzvah is with 5-minute breaks. So even during the 5-minute break, you're being Isaac b'mitzvah. We're not going to be matriach you during that 5-minute break to go be mekayim another mitzvah. Because even now, you're considered to be Isaac b'mitzvah. Another example would be the shomer of a mace. The Gemara says that somebody who's doing shmira on a mace is potter from other mitzvahs. Why is he potter from mitzvahs? What is keeping you so busy when you're doing shmira on a mace that you can't be mekayim a mitzvah? Why can't you say Kriya Shema while you're doing shmira on a mace? When you're doing shmira on a mace, you are engaged in a mitzvah of doing shmira in a mace. It's not the way of doing shmira on a mace to be busy doing other things while you're doing the shmira. If we're going to tell you that you can start doing other things while you're doing the shmira, so maybe you could do your work also when you're doing the shmira, right? Inevitably, the shmira on the mace is going to start to take a back seat. So you're doing shmira on the mace, even though it's true that it's physically possible for you to do other mitzvahs while you're doing the shmira on the mace, the Ran says, Isaac b'mitzvah potter min mitzvah. We're not matriach you to go ahead and do another mitzvah while you're engaged in doing the first mitzvah. Unless it's something where there's absolutely no reason at all why you can't be mekayim both mitzvahs at the same time. If it's absolutely no tircha, so for example, let's say somebody has an aveda. Somebody's doing shmira on an aveda. He found a lost object, and he's keeping it under his protection until the claimant comes and claims it. Kol zman, he's doing that shmira on the aveda, he's being a mekayim mitzvah. Somebody's wearing tzitzits. He's being a mekayim mitzvah. Are we going to say that as long as you're wearing tzitzits, you're potter to be called a tarakula? You're not mechuyev to say Kriya Shema because you're wearing tzitzits? Isaac b'mitzvah, potter ben a mitzvah? No. Over there's absolutely no mafriya at all to the wearing of tzitzits to go ahead and give tzedakah to an ani or to say Kriya Shema. If you have an aveda, somebody's aveda in the closet in your house, so that you're doing shmira on an aveda, saying Kriya Shema, putting on tefillin, is not mafriya that at all. It doesn't need your active engagement whatsoever. That's not called Isaac b'mitzvah. That's called being mekayim a mitzvah. It doesn't say mekayim mitzvah potter min mitzvah. It doesn't say anybody who's fulfilling any mitzvah doesn't have to do any other mitzvahs at all. It says ha'osek b'mitzvah, when you're engaged in a mitzvah. So you want to know hashavas aveda, when are you potter from other mitzvahs if you're busy with doing hashavas aveda? Yeah, if you're watching somebody's quilt, somebody lost a quilt and you're watching it, so one of the things you have to do is you have to shake it out every now and then so it doesn't get moldy, it doesn't get smelly. While you're shaking out the quilt, you're not mechuyev to do other mitzvahs. You're busy shaking out a quilt, and now somebody comes, asking, an ani comes and he asks you for some money, you're not mechuyev to stop what you're doing, because to stop what you're doing means you have to stop what you're doing, you have to put it down, you have to go inside, get $1, go give it to the ani, come back, shake the quilt out again, now you put it down, maybe it got dirty, so that's being mafriya you. That's cramping the style of taking care of the Aveda the way you have to take care of the Aveda. But if the quilt is sitting in your linen closet, so of course you have to get stuck into the ani. Then it's not mafriya the kiyum of the mitzvah Shavas Aveda at all. So we have this concept of kol ha'osek b'mitzvah potter min ha'mitzvah, and we have this brisa that talks about koisvei stam, koisvei svarim tefillin umezuzos. Now again, let's remember, like I said yesterday, let's remind ourselves. Back in the day, the ikar mitzvah of tefillin is kol hayoim. Really, you're supposed to be wearing tefillin the whole day. Now, what are we going to tell a sefer? Are we going to tell a sefer that while he has to do all of his writing and everything else while he's wearing tefillin? Maybe that's going to be hard for him. Also, pashtus, we're talking about a case where the sefer already sat down to write tefillin early in the morning before the Siman of tefillin. What are we going to tell him now? He's sitting and he's writing a Sefer Torah. We're going to tell him that he has to stop in middle, close up the ink, put down the quill. Now the quill is going to dry up, and now he should go and he should put on tefillin? No. He's being Osek b'mitzvah. He's being Osek b'malachas shamayim. He's not mechuyev to stop, put away all of his supplies and everything else, and go put on tefillin. He's being Osek in a mitzvah. So Osek b'mitzvah, potter in a mitzvah. That's the starting point of this sif over here. Let's see it inside. Samach Vav Amid Aleph, 2 lines off the bottom of sif ches. Says the Mechaber. Koisvei, tefillin umezuzos. Those who are writing tefillin and mezuzos, haim, them, v'tagarehem, the wholesalers who purchase from them in order to sell to the Judaica stores, v'tagarehem, and the merchants that are actually going to go out and sell the tefillin and the mezuzahs to the individuals who are going to buy them. So if they are engaged in their trade of selling stam, the chala oiskim b'malachas shamayim, so to anybody else who's busy doing malachas shamayim, piturim me'anochas tefillin kol hayom. The Mechaber says, while they're engaged in this, they are potter from going ahead and putting on tefillin, because they're engaged in malachas shamayim. Osek b'mitzvah, potter min ha'mitzvah. We're not going to tell them that they have to stop what they're doing in order to go put on tefillin. Zulas b'shas kriyas shema utfila. But the Mechaber says the exception over here is when it comes to the time of kriyas shema and the time of davening. So the Mechaber is saying like this: the sefer is sitting and he's writing. He has a p'tor. He doesn't have to put on tefillin, but he is gonna have to break for kriyas shema. He is gonna have to break for tefillah. And when he breaks for kriyas shema and when he breaks for tefillah, he's also going to have to put on tefillin. Now wait a second. Why is this? We just said the basis for all of this is Osek b'mitzvah potter min ha'mitzvah. So why is this person breaking for kriyas shema and tefillah? Why does he have to put down the kulmas? Why does he have to stop the writing that he's doing in order to say kriyas shema, in order to daven, and then to put on tefillin during kriyas shema and tefillah? If the basis for this is Osek b'mitzvah potter min ha'mitzvah, I would think that we should say that koisvei tefillin umezuzos, heim v'tagarei v'chaloiskim b'malachas shamayim, p'turim me'anochas tefillin kol hayom, period. and they're also patur from Kriya Shema, and they're also patur from Tefillah. Isaac b'mitzvah, patur min mitzvah. Yet, you see, the Shittas of Mechaber over here is not that way. The Shittas of the Mechaber is that they're patur from putting on Tefillin until it comes to the time when they have to say Kriya Shema, and then they're going to have to stop their writing, and they're going to have to say Kriya Shema. And when it comes time to daven Shemona Esrei, they're going to have to stop and they're going to have to say Shemona Esrei. And at that time, for Kriya Shema and for Tefillah, they're also going to have to put on Tefillin. Right? That's obviously the Shita of the Mechaber here. Now, the Mishnah Berurah does not say this, but I took a look at the Beis Yosef. Right? This is the Mechaber talking. So I looked at the Beis Yosef on the Torah, and this comes from the words of the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef on the Torah says the reason that they're not patur from Kriya Shema, Tefillah, and Tefillin is based on a Rabbeinu Yoina in Brachos, because the Rabbeinu Yoina says Kriya Shema, Tefillin, Tefillah, that's Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim. Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim you have to stop for. Even though Isaac b'mitzvah patur min mitzvah, but not Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim. Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim trumps Isaac b'mitzvah patur min mitzvah. Now, really, that needs a whole explanation. Why is it that Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim trumps Isaac b'mitzvah patur min mitzvah? Where does Isaac b'mitzvah patur min mitzvah come from? Isaac b'mitzvah patur min mitzvah comes from a pasuk. The pasuk says, we say it 3 times, we say it twice a day in Kriya Shema. We say, "Vayu advar me'ela shanoich mitzavach hayom alav avecha, v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam, b'shivtecha b'veisecha, uvelechtecha v'derech." That you have a chiyuv of Kriya Shema when b'shivtecha b'veisecha, uvelechtecha v'derech, when you're going on the way. The Gemara in Brachos says, uvelechtecha v'derech. Normally, lechtecha v'derech, when a person is traveling, most of the time it's divrei rishus. It's not divrei mitzvah necessarily. There are times that you're busy with mitzvah, but most of the time it's divrei rishus. So the pasuk is telling you, when are you chayiv in Kriya Shema? When you're busy with divrei rishus. But if it's not beleches didach, if it's right, ubelechtecha v'derech, when you're going on your way. So in the words of the Gemara, beleches didach, when you're busy going on your travels. But if it's not beleches didach, if it's beleches mitzvah, if you're busy with a mitzvah, then you're not chayiv in Kriya Shema. Why? Because Isaac b'mitzvah patur min mitzvah. So we're learning out the concept of Isaac b'mitzvah patur min mitzvah from a pasuk. So you would think that Isaac b'mitzvah patur min mitzvah trumps everything. Isaac b'mitzvah, you're busy sitting and writing tefillin, you're Isaac b'mitzvah, so finished. You're patur from Kriya Shema, you're patur from Shemona Esrei, you're patur from tefillin, kol hayoim. Says the Mechaber, no. You're patur until you got to say Kriya Shema before Zman Kriya Shema. Then you have to break, and then you have to say Kriya Shema, and you have to daven, and you have to put on tefillin. And he bases this on the Rabbeinu Yoina, who says that Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim is different. You have to break for Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim, and we have the memory of Rabbi Yochanan in Brachos, who says, what is Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim Shlema? What is the complete and true Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim? That's somebody who's wearing tefillin, he says Kriya Shema, and he says Shemona Esrei, he davens. That's Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim Shlema. So you gotta break, says the Mechaber, for Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim. Okay, this is the beginning, the tip of the iceberg of the sugya over here. Let's jump over here into the Mishnah Berurah's Chav Dalet, where the Mishnah Berurah says V'tagareihem. It's not only the sofer that's patur, but the wholesalers who buy from the soferim. Av shemarvichin mizeh, even though they're making money, right? They're doing business. But the Mishnah Berurah says V'dafka im ikar kavanasam kidei lahamtzion limkar lemi shetzarich lehem. This p'tur of the vendors, the p'tur of the sofer is he's writing stam. the p'tur of the tagareim. I'm saying this because the Mishnah Berurah says this in Dibur Amaskal Tagareim, even though they're making money, that they're selling, they're buying and they're selling, they're making money. Says the Mishnah Berurah, the p'tur of Isaac b'mitzvah patam and a mitzvah only is im ikar kavanasam kidei lamtzion limkar l'misha tzarich lehem. If their ikar kavana is that they're being Isaac b'malach shamayim. If their ikar kavana is, what do you do for a living? I provide stam for those who need them. I provide sifrei Torah, tefillin, and mezuzahs for those who need them. Agavurcha, I happen to get paid for it. But my ikar kavana is the mitzvah of providing stam for the customers who need stam. Aval ikar kavanasa rak lehistaker. But if the ikar kavana is a business, I need it in a business. There's big money in mezuzahs, so I do mezuzahs. Loi mikri Isaac b'mitzvah. Then the Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Magen Avram, that's not called Isaac b'mitzvah, and I believe that the Magen Avram gets this from Rashi and Sukkah, because Rashi and Sukkah says, I thought it was Rashi and Sukkah, one second. Yeah. Tagarehen, haloichin mehen, the vendors who purchased the stam from the Seifrim, kidei limkar, in order to sell them, ulahamtzion, and so that they should be found litzarich lahem, for those who need them. So Rashi went out of his way over here to say, why are the tagarehen, why are the wholesalers and the retailers of stam, why are they potter? They're potter because their kavana is to go ahead and provide stam for the consumers who need stam. So they're being Isaac b'malach shamayim. If their kavana is to make a buck, that's not called Isaac b'malach shamayim. We're not saying they can't make a buck. Go ahead and make a buck. But if your kavana is to make a buck, then you're a businessman. If your kavana is so that stam should be available for the people who need stam, then you're called Isaac b'malach shamayim. Hakoinim min hakoinim. These are the retailers who buy from the wholesalers, limkar al yad, to sell a little at a time. In other words, the wholesaler has a din with the cipher. I'm going to buy all your mezuzahs. You write 100 mezuzahs, I buy 100 mezuzahs. You write 10 pairs of tefillin, I buy 10 pairs of tefillin. And then they sell it to the retailers. The retailers stock a certain amount, and they sell one at a time. That's what they do. The wholesalers don't sell one at a time. They sell a bunch at a time. But the wholesalers, the retailers, if they're busy with this Balech Shamayim, they're potter. Okay, so that's the Mechaber. So again, the Mechaber, he applies Isaac b'mitzvah, patam in a mitzvah, to the wearing of tefillin. But he says that when it comes to Kabbalah's Al Malchus Shamayim, you got to say Kriya Shema, you got to daven Shemona Esrei, you got to put on tefillin, because that's Kabbalah's Al Malchus Shamayim. Now we come to the Ramah. Bottom line here in the Shulchan Aruch. Samach Vav Amud Aleph. Hagah, says the Ramah. V'im hayu tzrichim lasois melachtan b'shas Kriya Shema u'tefillah. Let's say the Sefer Pashut has a need to do his work even Shas Kriya Shema and Shas Tefillah. In other words, he's working. It's 2 minutes to Zman Kriya Shema, and he can't stop. There's a tzorich. We're going to have to see what that tzorich is. But says the Ramah, if there's a tzorich that the Sefer must do his work even b'Shas Kriya Shema and Shas Tefillah, then says the Ramah, Oz Peturin mikriya Shema u'Tefillah u'Tefillin. You see what the Ramah does? The Mechaber was only willing to take Isaac b'mitzvah patam in mitzvah to a certain extent. He was willing to take Isaac b'mitzvah patam in mitzvah up until Kriya Shema, Shemona Esrei, and Tefillin. Ultimately, according to the Mechaber, the Sefer has got to put down the kolmis before Zman Kriya Shema, and he's got to say Kriya Shema, and he's got to daven Shemona Esrei, and he's got to put on Tefillin. Rabbeinu Yoina Kabbalah Al Malchus Shamayim. Says the Ramah, if there's a tzorich, and the Sefer has a tzorich that he's got to continue doing his work, even though he's going to be mevatel Kriya Shema Daraisa, and he's going to be mevatel Tefillah D'Rabbanan, famous machlokes Ramban and the Rambam, if Tefillah is a Daraisa, Tefillah is a D'Rabbanan, and he's going to be mevatel Tefillin, he's potter from everything. Why, says the Ramah? The Chaloisik b'mitzvah potter b'mitzvah acheres. Because what do you mean? This is Oisik b'mitzvah potter b'mitzvah 101, right? Oisik b'mitzvah potter b'mitzvah. So if there's a tzarech, Oisik b'mitzvah potter b'mitzvah. Im tzarech litroyach achara acheres. If the mitzvah that you're trying to do is going to be mafriya you, but he doesn't say it's going to be mevatel you from doing the first mitzvah. Im tzarech litroyach achar ha'acheres. This is coming from the Ran that I told you about. Oisik b'mitzvah is potter b'mitzvah. If it's going to take a tircha to do the new mitzvah, you're not mechuyev to do the new mitzvah. While you're busily engaged in one mitzvah, you're not mechuyev to be matriach, to do another mitzvah. Why? Because that tircha is considered a mafriya on the first mitzvah. Even it might not be mevatel the first mitzvah. Like the person who's being shomer the mace. The person who's being shomer the mace, if he sits down to say Kriya Shema, he could still do shmira on the mace. But you're being matriach him to stop from, to change tracks. I'm here in the morgue in the hospital to do shmira on the mace. Now you want me to go put on tefillin. So I have to make sure I have my tefillin with me. I have to have a place to put down the tefillin bag. I feel funny over here in the morgue putting on the tefillin. There might even be a loig l'rush problem if you're within Daled Amos. I don't want to get into that now. But whatever. I'm being matriach you. No. I'm now a shomer on a mace. That's my job now. Don't be matriach me to do another mitzvah. That's the words of the Ramah coming from the Ran. The chala oisik b'mitzvah potter b'mitzvah acheres im tzarich l'troyach achar acheres. If there is a measure of tircha on the other one, avalim yochel lasei shtein ka'achas b'loi toirach. But if you can mamish do both mitzvahs and there's no mafriya whatsoever, there's no cost to the first mitzvah at all, right? You're like I said, you're wearing tzitzits. So you're being Mekayim a mitzvah, but you could say Kriya Shema while you're wearing tzitzis. There's no mafriya whatsoever, right? If you could yaseh shtein, im yochel laseh shtein ka'achas b'loi toirach yaseh shtein. He brings that down from the Ashri in the name of Zerua and the Ran in Masechta Sukkah. Okay, so we have the Mechaber, we have the Ramah. What's the argument between the Ramah and the Mechaber? The Mechaber draws a line with Oisik b'mitzvah potter b'mitzvah, and he says that Kabbalah's Ol Malchus Shamayim ultimately trumps Oisik b'mitzvah potter b'mitzvah, and Kriya Shema Tefillah and Tefillin. At the end of the day, you're going to have to put down your kulmus, you're going to have to stop your writing, and you're going to have to be mafsik in that Meleches Shamayim in order to be Mekabel Ol Malchus Shamayim, Kriya Shema and Tefillah together with Tefillin. That's what the Mechaber said. The Ramah came along, and the Ramah didn't totally argue on the Mechaber, but the Ramah said, wait, it depends. It depends. If it's not pshat that you're just a sefer who's sitting and writing, but you have a tzorich. If you have a tzorich, right? That was the words of the Ramah here. If they had a tzorich to do their work, and that tzorich goes to the extent that it's going to be mavatal them from Kriya Shema, Shemon Esrei, and Tefillin, okay, they should be mavatal Kriya Shema, they should be mavatal Shemon Esrei, they should be mavatal Tefillin. Why? Because Kalaisik B'mitzvah, Potter B'na Mitzvah. Now, what is this tzorich that the Ramah is talking about? What's the tzorich? So let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah back at Samach Vav Amud Aleph. Ois Katan Chavav Tzrichim. The Mishnah Berurah brings down a lavush. The Mishnah Berurah says, Kigoin shenizdamen like koine sheroitza liknoi stam. Somebody came to the cipher and he said, I need a pair of tefillin. Va'koine roitza lifresh bayam oy b'shayara akshav. And the guy comes and he says, look, I know this sounds crazy, okay, but I'm a mashgiach. And I got to go to a chocolate factory in Venezuela. And my Uber to LaGuardia is leaving in 20 minutes. And I need a pair of tefillin. And when I get to Venezuela, I'm not going to be able to buy tefillin in Venezuela. And I'm not going to be able to buy tefillin in the Uber. And I'm not going to be able to buy tefillin on the plane. And I'm not going to be able to buy tefillin in the airport in Venezuela. So I need tefillin from you now. And I can't wait. It's now 20 minutes to Zman Kriya Shema. You didn't say Kriya Shema yet, Reb Seifer. I know you didn't say Kriya Shema yet. But I need tefillin. And I need them now. So I need you to finish writing the pair of tefillin that you're writing now. And you're going to be mevatel the mitzvah say daraisa of Kriya Shema. And maybe you'll be mevatel tefillin, you'll be mevatel tefillah. Maybe it's going to take you not only 15 minutes now, it's going to take you all the way until Zman tefillah, whatever. But you're going to be mevatel those mitzvahs. But I need the tefillin now. That's what the Lavush says the Rama means. There's somebody here right now by the Sefer who needs to buy tefillin. And he needs to go, he got to go get on a ship. We're standing at the port. And he's got to get on the ship. He's got to leave. He's got to get into the Uber. And he's got to go to the airport to go to Venezuela. And I can't wait now for you to say Kriya Shema. And if you provide my needs now, you're going to be mevatel Kriya Shema. It's not only Kriya Shema. There's an ani standing here right now who's asking the Sefer for money. And in order for the Sefer to give the ani money, he's got to go inside and he's got to go find money. But I'm standing here right now. I need tefillin. That's it. I think it's a pטור מן המצווה. You got to give me my tefillin. Al kein mutter lichtay v'limkar lazeh. The Sefer is allowed to continue writing, and he's allowed to sell the tefillin to the guy going to Venezuela. Afal pi shal yidei zeh yavar zman hamitzvah. Even though he's going to lose the mitzvah. He's going to be mevatel the mitzvah. So here you see the case of the Lavush, where there's the machlokes between the Mechaber and the Ramah. The Mechaber says, you got to be mekabel al malchus shamayim. You got to be mekabel al malchus shamayim. I'm sorry. You're gonna get in your Uber, and what should I tell you? So miss your Uber. Risk missing your flight. Or go. I don't know what you should do, but it's not on me. I can't be mevatel al malchus shamayim. So me, the Sefer, I'm sorry, Rabbi, but you're going to have to wait 5 minutes because I got to put on tefillin and I got to say Kriya Shema. That's all. Too bad. That's the Mechaber. The Ramah says, no, Osek b'mitzvah pטור מן המצווה. What are you talking about? Osek b'mitzvah pטור מן המצווה. However, let's see Ois Katan Chav Zayin. Oz Peturin. Now comes a critical caveat over here. Umayri shekvar hischel lichtov koidem shehigia zman Kriya Shema. Oh, remember what we're talking about over here. What's the underlying pטור? The underlying pטור is Osek b'mitzvah pטור מן המצווה. So says the Mishnah Berurah, what are we talking over here? We're talking Osek b'mitzvah. When does the Mechaber say that the Sefer who's writing Stam has a pטור of Osek b'mitzvah pטור מן המצווה? That's if he started the mitzvah of writing Stam before the Zman of Tefillin or the Zman of Kriya Shema began. Wait a second. That means, when does the Zman of Tefillin start? The Zman of Tefillin starts Mishayakir, right? When does the Zman of Kriya Shema start? When's the Zman of Chiyuv of Kriya Shema? Neitz Achama? Oh, it's before Neitz, right? Because you daven, you say Kriya Shema before Neitz, and then you daven Shemona Esrei with Neitz. But we're talking about over here where a Sefer started writing before the Zman of Kriya Shema, before the Zman of Tefillin. that's when Oisik b'mitzvah patur min ha-mitzvah. You're patur because you're Oisik b'mitzvah. But let's say you didn't start writing yet. Let's say the chiyuv of Kriya Shema is already on you. It's after the zman of Kriya Shema. It's after the time when you could already say Kriya Shema. So the chiyuv is upon you already. So now you can't pick up a pen. You can't pick up a quill, pick up a kolmis, start writing, and say Oisik b'mitzvah patur min ha-mitzvah. What do you mean? The chiyuv of Kriya Shema came first. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Avo mishehigia hazman. If it's already after Misha Yakir, so you already have a chiyuv to put on tefillin. What do you mean Oisik b'mitzvah patur min ha-mitzvah? You can't pick up a kolmis now and pater yourself from tefillin. The chiyuv of tefillin came first. Avo mishehigia hazman asa lahaschel lichtov. You're not allowed to start writing. Siman ayin beis sif beis, like we're going to see in ayin beis sif beis, which is Hilchos Kriya Shema, where it says if there's a mace that needs burial, ein moitzian es hameich samach lekriya Shema, shein shas loitzia lekavrei kaidim sheyigia zman Kriya Shema, v'mischilu loitzia ein mafsikin kedei likrois. You have a chiyuv. We have this all over the place. Whenever you have a chiyuv of a mitzvah, right? You have a chiyuv of one mitzvah, you're not allowed to start doing something else that might tie you up and might cost you the mitzvah. So if you already reached the point of the day where you have a chiyuv to say Kriya Shema, you can't pick up a kolmis and say Oisik b'mitzvah patur min ha-mitzvah. If it's after Misha Yakir and you have a chiyuv to put on tefillin, you can't pick up a kolmis and pater yourself in tefillin. Oisik b'mitzvah patur min ha-mitzvah. So says the Mishnah Berurah over here. Kain Kasav Magen Avram. So now let's just tweak our understanding of what we said so far. Now it comes out when the Mechaber said Koisvei Tefillin u'mezuzos Heim v'tagarei v'tagarei v'chaloiskim v'malachis shamayim Pturim me'anochas Tefillin kol hayom Zulas b'shas Kriya Shema Tefillah. What did he mean? He means a Sefer got up early in the morning. He knew that today there was going to be a run on tefillin, on mezuzos. So he figured, I better, what's the term? I better, the early bird gets the worm. I better start off early. So he got up 4 o'clock in the morning. He got up before the Zman Kriya Shema. He got up before Misha Yakir. He's sitting and he's writing. Says the Mechaber, you're not mechuyev to be mafsik. You're not mechuyev to be mafsik. Oisik b'mitzvah, you're already engaged in the mitzvah. You're already busy writing the stam. You're not mechuyev to be mafsik. Oisik b'mitzvah, patur min ha-mitzvah. Now, according to the Mechaber, even though you started before the chiyuv of Kriya Shema, before the chiyuv of tefillin, even though you started your writing early, so oisik b'mitzvah, patur min ha-mitzvah, according to the Mechaber, eventually you're going to have to be mafsik. If you're getting ready to 5 minutes before Zman Kriya Shema, before the end of Zman Kriya Shema, you got to be mafsik, because you got to be makabel all malchus shemayim. Says the Ramah says, the Mechaber says you have to be mafsik. Says the Ramah, if there's a tzorich that's preventing you from being mafsik, again, you started at 4 o'clock in the morning. So like the Mechaber said, you don't have to be mafsik. But the Mechaber said you have to be mafsik for Kabbalas al Malchus Shamayim. Before you lose the mitzvah of Kriya Shema, before the Soif Zman Kriya Shema, you're going to have to be mafsik. Before the Soif Zman Tefillin, Shkia, you're going to have to be mafsik. Because Kabbalas al Malchus Shamayim, that's what the Mechaber said. Says the Ramah, if there's a tzorich that's preventing you from being mafsik, right? This Yid came, and this Yid said, I'm going to Venezuela, I need tefillin. So now you have a tzorich that's telling you that you can't be mafsik. Says the Ramah, that tzorich, together with oisik b'mitzvah, patur min ha-mitzvah, trumps Kabbalas al Malchus Shamayim. You hear? The Mechaber said, Kabbalas al Malchus Shamayim trumps oisik b'mitzvah, patur min ha-mitzvah. So under normal circumstances, even though you started your Safras 4 o'clock in the morning, You started before the beginning of Zman Kriya Shema. You started before the beginning of Zman Tefillin. So normally, Oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah, you should be allowed to write all the way through the Sof Zman Kriya Shema, the Sof Zman Tefillah, the Sof Zman Tefillin, because Oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah. But the Mechaber said no, because Kabbalas al Malchus Shamayim trumps Oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah. So you're mechuyev to be mafsik. Came along the Ramah said, if you add on to Oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah, that is also a unique tzorich. There's a yid standing over here who needs tefillin, and if you don't give him tefillin now, he's going to have to get on the plane and go to Venezuela. He's not going to have tefillin for the next 6 weeks in Venezuela. He's going to be mavatal the mitzvah of tefillin. So besides Oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah, there's mamash a tzorich, said the Ramah, that trumps Kabbal's Al Malchus Shamayim, and you could be mevatel Kriya Shema, be mevatel Tefillah, be mevatel Tefillin. Right? That's the way the Mishnah Berurah comes out. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, Achein, however, Lefi ma shetziyarnu mitchila b'shem halavush, going back to the Lavush's case of the guy who's got to go to Venezuela, Sha'koinet tzarich lavar bayom oy b'shayara v'i efshel lahamtin ad sha'sof yikayim kriya shema tefillah, pashit de lekulei alma muter ha'sofer lasois loy malachtoi imu mishayer she'yishar loy zman likrois. What's the Mishnah Berurah saying now? The Mishnah Berurah is saying when did the Mechaber and the Ramah give you a heter of Oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah? Only when you started the mitzvah that you're doing before the Zman Chiv of the new mitzvah. You started writing your Safras before the beginning of Zman Kriya Shema, before the beginning of Zman Tefillin, before the beginning of Zman Tefillah. That's when you have the heter of Oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah. However, says the Mishnah Berurah, let's say you didn't start before the Zman of the other Chiv. Let's say the beginning of Zman Kriya Shema already started. I'm going to the 8:30 minyan. The beginning of Zman Kriya Shema was 5:30 in the morning. I'm going to the 8:30 minyan. So I already have a Chiv of Kriya Shema. It's after B'Shayakir. I already have a Chiv of Tefillin. And I already have a Chiv of Tefillah. And I'm walking my merry way to the 8:30 minyan. Now the Yid who's going to Venezuela comes to me, and he wants me to write Tefillin for him. Normally, the halacha would be, I'm not allowed to start writing for him now. I have a Chiv of Kriya Shema now. I have a Chiv of Tefillah now. I have a Chiv of Tefillin now. If I sit down and take out a kulmus and start writing a mezuzah now, I might get tied up, and I might risk being mevatel Kriya Shema, Tefillah, and Tefillin. I'm not allowed to do that. That's Siman Ayin Beis, Sif Beis. You're not allowed to start doing a mitzvah when you already have the chiyuv of a previous mitzvah on you. So really, I'm not allowed to help him. But says the Mishnah Berurah, we're going to give you a dispensation. If you're certain that you could provide this yid with what he needs, and you're still going to be able to say Kriya Shema Bizmana, you're still going to be able to daven Bizmana, you're still going to be able to put on Tefillin Bizmana, then we give you a dispensation to help this yid. Normally, you're not allowed to do that. I'm sorry, I have a Chiv Kriya Shema now. I'm not allowed to sit down and start writing Safras until I say Kriya Shema. Until I daven, I'm not allowed to do it. Wait till after the 8:30 minyan. I can't wait till the 8:30 minyan. I got to get to LaGuardia. Then the Sefer could say, what do you need? What do you need? You need me to finish writing this parsha of the Tefillin? It'll take me a half an hour. I have still an hour left to Zman Kriya Shema. I'm sure I'll make it. If he's sure he's going to make it, then he's allowed to help the Yid out. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says over here. Imu mishayer sheyishar lo zman likrois. V'yuchal likroi parsha achas b'kodim yikra. Wow. This is very, very, very complex. And I'm not going to stop yet because we have to do one more Mishnah Berurah. We have to do Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton Chav Ches for sure. Otherwise, we're going to lose the thread. So I just want to put it all together right now for where we're holding at this point. Okay? There's a P'tor, Oisik b'mitzvah, Patur ben mitzvah. What does Oisik b'mitzvah mean? It means I am engaged already in one mitzvah. I'm not mechuyev to be matriach to do a different mitzvah. Even if it's a daraisa. I'm being oisik in one daraisa. I'm not mechuyev to break and be matriach to do another mitzvah. Based on that, says the Mechaber, following the pirush of the Mishnah Berurah here, a sofer got up 4 o'clock in the morning, so he does not yet have a chiyuv of Kriya Shema. He does not yet have a chiyuv of tefillah. He does not yet have a chiyuv of tefillin. He got up and he started writing stam. He started writing tefillin. He started writing mezuzahs. He is a oisik b'mitzvah. Is he mechuyev to be mafsik, to go ahead and say Kriya Shema? Is he mechuyev to be mafsik to go put on tefillin? Is he mechuyev to be mafsik to daven Shema Esrei? Says the Mechaber, no. But that p'tor only goes so far, says the Mechaber. He's going to have to be mafsik ultimately before the Seif Zman Kriya Shema. And he's going to have to say Kriya Shema with tefillin, and he'll have to daven. Why? Kabbalah Sol Malchus Shemayim. Why does Kabbalah Sol Malchus Shemayim trump Oisik b'mitzvah Patur ben mitzvah? Ayin Rabbeinu Yoina in Brachas. We'll have to talk about that another time. But that's what the Mechaber says. Comes along the Ramah, and the Ramah says if you throw in another ingredient, if you throw in a unique tzorich, there's a Yid who's about to leave to Venezuela, he doesn't have tefillin. In that case, says the Ramah, you could go ahead, since you started before the Zman, remember, you picked up the kolmis before you had a chiyuv Kriya Shema, before you had a chiyuv tefillah, before you had a chiyuv tefillin, so you're oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah, oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah, together with the unique tzorich of the Yid who's got to get to LaGuardia, then, says the Ramah, you could write the tefillin, even if it's going to cost you Kriya Shema, cost you tefillah, and cost you tefillin. Why? Oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah. But again, that's all only if you started writing the tefillin, the Sefer Torah, the mezuzah, before the Haschalas Zman Kriya Shema tefillah and tefillin. If you started after, you weren't an Oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah. The chiyuv of tefillah, tefillin, Kriya Shema came first. So you're not Oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah. You can't start doing these mitzvahs until you mekayim those mitzvahs. Tefillah, Kriya Shema, tefillin. They came first. With one exception. The exception is, says the Mishnah Berurah, the Yid who has to go to Venezuela. In that case, you could pick up the kolmas at 8 o'clock. Even though you already have a chiyuv Kriya Shema, tefillah, tefillin. You could pick up the kolmas at 8 o'clock, provided that you know, or your Messiah at least, you reasonably feel certain that you'll finish taking care of him while you could still be Mekayim, Kriya Shema, tefillin, and tefillah. Okay. Wow. You want to see some more complexity? Look at the Bir Halachas over here. We don't have time to go through the Bir Halachas, but beautiful Bir Halachas over here that really take you deeper into the sugya. Okay, we're already running over time, but let's go to Ois Katan Chav Ches. The Chala Oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah. We already spoke this out. V'dafka Oisik b'mitzvah. The p'tor of Oisik b'mitzvah patur ben mitzvah is only if you're really engaged in the kiyum ha-mitzvah. Kigoyin b'shashu loy v'shat tefillin Oisik b'tikunei ha'aveda. Kigoyin l'shatcha l'tzarcha ayla hashiva l'ba'aleh v'chol k'hagavna. If somebody is wearing tefillin and you want him to go be mekayim another mitzvah, that's going to be mesiach das from the tefillin, or he's taking care of an aveda. Not that he has an aveda in his linen closet. He's taking care of the aveda. Kigoyin l'shatcha l'tzarcha, he has to shake it out. Ayla hashiva l'ba'aleh, he's walking down the street to return it to the owner. V'chol k'hagavna. Avol b'shashahu mekayim mitzvah, if it's while somebody is just being mekayim a mitzvah, kigoyin shu kvar lovush tefillin. In other words, at the beginning of the Mishnah Berurah over here, when he said kigoyin b'shashu loivesh hatfillin, I don't know why it threw me for a minute. He should have used the word miniach tefillin. If while a person is putting on tefillin, that's oisik b'mitzvah. At that point, he's patur min mitzvah. Somebody comes and asks him for tzedakah. Sorry, oisik b'mitzvah, patur min mitzvah. I'm being oisik in the mitzvah. I'm shaking out the quilt. I'm being oisik in the mitzvah. Aval b'shashu mekayim mitzvah, kigon shu kvar lovish tefillin. He's already wearing tefillin, or he's wearing tzitzits. Or he's watching an aveda that's in his linen closet. Even though right now I'm being mekayim a mitzvah, I'm wearing tefillin, I'm being mekayim a mitzvah, that doesn't pat me from another mitzvah. And then oisik mitzvah. Im tzarich, the Ramah said, if to do the new mitzvah you would have to be matriach, ritzayin aloymar, afilu al yedei zeh lo yispatel mitzvah rishayna. This is the shomer on the mace. He's not going to be mevatel the mitzvah of doing shmiras hameis if he puts on tefillin while he's doing shmiras hameis. Vafilu al mitzvah shniya yosek gedoyla kevit shekvar hischa lasik barishayna. You're already busy with the first mitzvah. Right? Without matriach you're digging the kuchen for the mace. You could theoretically put on tefillin while you're taking a 5-minute break. Without matriach you to do that. Right now you belong sitting and resting under a tree so that you could recover your strength and go on digging the kuchen. We're not going to be matriach you to put on tefillin. Okay, we're going to stop over here. We'll continue next time with Sif Tes. Wow, this is some sugya. Okay, thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. This was limud HaTorah should be making against Klal Yisrael. For Baruch Hashem, she said, Yeshua Sefurus Parnaset Sheduchim Tolol Zanin, and we should be zoichet to see the Biaskal Tzedek, B'meher V'yameinu Amen. Be well.